folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
Hi there again, Robert, and to the Milky Way Soul Tribe folks, and to our dear friend who's passed on, Brian. I kind of felt him around me this afternoon. And as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we always continue to pray that you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And we got a good story for you later on, too. So hang out with us. And thanks for coming.
Yep, exactly. Tonight we got a great show. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the pilgrims. Remember, we were talking about the ancient Indians and stuff like that. I was kind of got into reading about. I read so much, you know. And the thing was, I was reading about the Cherokee, and I was going to do a show on the Cherokee, and then I kind of switched over, and I found this real good spot. About the pilgrims and anyway, let's see. So anyway, there's Chloe. Chloe's in the house. Much love. I'm working, so I can't be in chat. But love y'all. Well, love you too, Chloe. Thank you for coming on. Anyway, gotta have you on the show again sometime. Anyway, so I come across, of course, in my cool little old book that I had. And I read this passage, and I'll read it to you because I wrote it down, and it just makes sense. When I read it, I thought, what? It says, this is what I came up with. One of them was Aspinet, the first open enemy as the Poconet Sketchum, and was the first ally of whom the Plymouth settlement of petty tribes. A number of petty tribes settled in various parts of what is now Barnstable, all of whom are said to have been ultimately subject or at least subsidiaries of Massasoit. And we've talked about Massasoit before. But this guy, he was quite the character. You know what I mean? Aspinet was. And we're going to look at him a little bit. As my screen comes up, and I'll blow this up, and I'll screen share because everybody likes to see something instead of nothing, right? Especially, that's why we got video. And this is the guy. This is the only picture I could really find of him that would have been kind of close. But this is supposed to be Aspinet. There you go. What debates, guys? What debate? Yeah, the Trump Harris show. Exactly. So you know what day this is on. Anyway, if I'm sneezing or sniffling, it's only because it's freaking smoky here. Smoke is drifting in from Canada, Western United States, Idaho. Who knows where it's coming from, but the whole darn woods is burning down somewhere. And it's coming here. It's thick as fog, giving me a headache, making my throat sore. Oh, my goodness. Smoke everywhere. I've never seen so much smoke.
Yeah, every fall and sometimes early spring, you know, all the farmers and forestry folks around here burn off their property, and the smoke will just you know, lay thick in the air. It'll just stick.
Yeah. You. Boy, does but it's not like it goes away. It's like, holy cow, this has been like this for days. And some days it's really bad, and some days it's not so bad, but it's bad. Ugh. And there's F Kitty. F Kitty's in the house. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, so this was our guy here, Aspinet. And now remember, we're talking about the pilgrims, the first colonists. They came here back in the 1600s, remember, settled upon the shore. And the more I read about the pilgrims, the more I just think, wow, they were so used. You might not think about that. Remember, they were dropped off on the side of the, basically the road is, the seashore is the road, and they were dropped off on the side of the road and said, here you go. and they didn't get dropped. Did you know the pilgrims didn't get dropped in the right spot?
Yep.
Yeah. So you know how they solved the problem is they dropped the pilgrims off in the wrong spot, and the guy went, "Oops, I made a mistake." He went back to England, and then talked to him there, and they went, "Well, we'll just redraw the boundary. Now you're good." And that's how he fixed it. And I thought, yeah, well, politics never changes. The pilgrims this was all about politics. It was all about.
Wasn't there one group that we talked about a few months back that actually got in some boats and went to the right place? Or am I mistaken? They moved.
Nope. These guys, the pilgrims, they settled right there and they built their houses. And
I'm thinking of something else. Okay.
Yeah, because this was December and they really couldn't go much of anywhere. Like I said, the boats dropping them off on the seashore. They're like, well, we found a good spot. Here we go. Let's settle in here. There was, more men. There was 66 men and 16 women, and really it was all about the work that was going to get done. They were most of these, if not all these people, were contracted out by, basically, we'll just put it in modern day terms, a corporation or a business somewhere along the line to farm and to develop the land. And this kept on for a long time. Remember, these are, yes, Scotty Boy says, really 66 and 16. Yes, there was a lot of men and very few women. Remember, they came over. It was kind of offset. And they, what kind of woman wants to sail across the ocean to somewhere they don't have a clue about? Heck, you can't get a woman nowadays to sit in a car and drive across town to somewhere they don't want to go. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm divorced. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. Well, anyway, of course, these guys got dropped off. They had, here you are, right on the seashore. You're going to be, the women are washing clothes, the men are out hunting. It's time to build some houses and make a life here. Go find some open ground. You really didn't bring anything with you, basically the basics. You had to rely on everything that basically you had with you to survive. Talk about the ultimate survival. They couldn't go to town, it was like bugging out. People talk about bugging out and what few things they're going to take with you. Well, you go back and look at the pilgrims and realize that they got dropped off with some food and some rations and a few odds and ends things that they have to survive, guns or whatever. And goodbye, civilization. The boat sails away and there's no town to go to. It ain't like you're going to walk to town. It ain't like you're going to find anybody else. You know who you got out there?
Them savages.
Yes. Remember the savages. The word savage in the Indian tongue was, people of the fierce people of the woods. People of the woods. And of course, they were on the Cape Cod area and there was plenty of woods there. And of course, the men struggled and they were building cabins, hauling logs. If you notice here in these pictures, what's the one thing you don't see?
I don't know. The picture is small for me.
Okay. Well, you don't see any horses. No animals.
No. Well, yeah, I thought about horses early, but I was like, well, they wouldn't have had room to bring them.
Yeah, no cow, no horses. Look at the man here. He's struggling to move this log. Over
There
here.
does look like, is that a dog or a goat right there in the middle?
Where? Nope, nope. It's all people. This is a
Oh,
guy.
oh, it's a guy sitting down. Okay.
This looks like a priest of some sort. He's got the black robe, and stuff like that. Here's they're all Puritans. Remember, they're all dressing in black, kind of stuff. Here looks like an armed guard kind of guy over there. But anyway, as we move on, no animals. Okay, and they had to build these houses. And it looks, oh boy, isn't this rustic and cool to build your house? Yeah, but you got to remember, these people had to saw the lumber. They had to, it's in the winter. It's December. And they're building a house. It wasn't all green and nice like this. They had giant trees. Remember, back in the day, nobody had cut a tree down. The Indians did. The only way the Indians could cut down a tree was by girdling it and chipping at it with stone axes and burning it until it fell down. And then basically you spend hours and hours hollowing it out to, make something. You're not making lumber. I think the Indians were very jealous of the white men when they seen these houses. Like, holy cow, look at what you can construct. How is that possible? Now, this is
but I think that sometimes they thought it was a waste of energy.
Yes. We're going to look at some of the Indian houses, and this is the pilgrim. This is a pilgrim village. This is what their houses would have probably looked like, they say. Grass, just like in England, the roofs are made of grass, thatched wood. You got a chimney here to the side or in the center of the house, kind of similar to the natives would be in the center of the house. Your chimneys are basically made of wood or maybe clay, but it's covered with wood, I imagine. So you'd have a good chance of your house burning down. These here railings look like split logs. You found small split logs and here. Give the dog a treat. Anyway, you have this is your pilgrim town. You got a few trees left. You got some small pens. This is probably after many, many days of working really hard you got some chickens and stuff running around, and you got a small street. Everybody lives together because you're in protective mode. Because of this, like you said, the savages that may be roaming around out there. Now, we move over we can learn a lot by their houses. Now, here's an Indian wigwam, or what do you want to call it? It's not quite a longhouse, but
a lodge.
A lodge, yes. Thank you for that. It's just basically twigs and branches with bark taken off of trees and laid over the top as roofing, and a small door with you can see there's a leather piece here that would be serve as a doorway, and the center would have a hole in it for the fire. Very simple, probably pretty easy to make. You could probably make one of these in a couple of days with a little bit of help, a few tribesmen. One thing that they were probably envious of is that the pilgrims had a thing called a bed where you sit up off of the ground. Remember, the natives had woven mats that they laid in. The English had cloth, which they made blankets. They had, maybe had a bed with, that stood off the ground. They weren't laying on the ground. So they would be envious of this.
No.
No, you don't think so?
No, because I've talked to some native folks, and they're like, it was all about being close to Mother Earth. And also, by the way, being up off the ground like that in the wintertime, it gets cold underneath that comes up through the bottom of the bed. If you're sleeping on the ground, you keep that warmth right there. So they weren't necessarily envious of the bed.
Good point. Good point. I would have never thought of that. I was just thinking, see, looks like a modern thing. I guess they didn't have heated blankets.
Nope. Well, what they did have, they used to have those, they were warmer pots, and they would put coals in those pots that had a lid on them, that had a handle, and they'd stick them
Yep.
in and into the bed, before they went to bed at night, and kind of move it around. They'd put it in one spot and they'd move it around a little bit to warm up the bed before they got in. So, in a way, they did have warmers.
Nice. That's a good idea. Yeah, I never thought of that. And one thing I suppose they did have, they had the fireplace. You notice there's this whole thing is the fireplace, and the fire is, it's going up the chimney somewhere here, unless this is the chimney. But yeah, you basically have the fire in the house, and I can imagine many houses probably burned down.
Some of them did, yeah.
It cannot be.
But also something I wanted to point out: the pictures of those houses in that painting, they're too big.
Yes.
The houses that they built back then, you had to stoop under to get in. They made them really small and low. They didn't make them very big with high ceilings because that was harder to heat. And so they were, basically a one-room shack.
Yes. Yep. You don't want to have too many rooms, and you had a lot of people living in one house too. It was kind of a communal house, you wouldn't, and you had a lot of kids too. So I know when I read about the Pilgrims, the first winter they had very few houses, so people bunked together, 10, 11 of them in one of those little shacks you're talking about. And when they got sick, the sickness spread real fast. I imagine you're either sleeping with somebody or you're walking around, you're within, they're coughing right on you. Couldn't have been so. I don't think they looked at sanitation very well either.
Well, and it was hard. The sanitation back in the day was hard.
Yeah, keeping your hands clean and washed. Ain't like you're going to the pump to pump out clean water either. And of course the natives, the Indians, they weren't doing much better. Look they were still in this hut. You got bark covering it. You're basically walking in and out. You got an open door, maybe with a piece of leather hide hanging over the top of it. The only difference between this and the house is when this gets dirty or something, you just burn it down and move away. Somebody gets sick in here, you get rid of the disease, you burn the house down, or you destroy it or leave it or whatever. And Scotty Boy's right, 0 bathrooms. Yes, it's below 0 in the winter. There is no soap and water to wash your hands unless you're melting snow. Anyway,
and they didn't. And something else too. They had wooden buckets.
Oh yeah, yes.
So it's not like they could put when I go camping, I take a galvanized bucket and I can put water in it and sit it on the fire, and I can have warm or hot water all the time. Yeah. But they did not have that luxury.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I read about that they would have like a leather bucket too, where they just took hides and kind of made it into a bucket, kind of a leather bucket. I guess that would be pretty good too, I guess. But still, they did a lot of trading with the Indians, but see the contrast between the Indians. Here you got an Indian, and here's the colonists with their big hats. I mean, they must have looked quite terrifying to the natives when they first showed up, with the big hats, guns, different kind of shoes and breechings. Nothing like the Indian wear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The Indians would be like, "Where's your moccasins?"
Yeah. Or yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can see the different types of shoes, the big belt buckles, the massive amounts of metal stuff, from the steel hats for the army guy, the guns, metal. You're talking a lot of metal. And natives did not have the metal. Now we get over to our guy, Miles Standish. He was the big, Indian fighter. He was the man. Miles Standish, he was the negotiator. He was the kind of the leader that really brought things together and negotiated with the Indians. He did. We did a show on him a while back. But
that picture looks a little like Henry the Fourth.
Yeah. The thing is most of these, just like all these pictures, I noticed it's the sign of the times, like this collar he had, around his neck. It gives it that flair of like, I'm really important, and the funny hats they wore and the beards, they all got big beards of some sort. More pictures. This one here shows a cow plowing a field, but this was Longfellow Standish, maybe a little farther into the Pilgrim area, but in the beginning they didn't have all these things. They did trading with the Indians. As you notice, the different style, the clash. Whereas, here you can see by the moccasins, we were talking about shoes and moccasins. And look at his shoes. He's got the tight shoe, probably hard leather and a sole. And then he's got these big balloony things on top. And then, of course, the Indians got moccasins and, less clothing, half a shirt or a shawl covering him. And he carries his what do you call that thing? Shield and a spear with him, So it's kind of interesting. And what he's holding, it looks like a snake. This guy, it looks like he's holding a snake. And of course, plenty of feathers, decorations. The natives were very big on decorations and fancy garb. We've talked about that many a times. And they did. They dressed up fancy.
You know what? He might be holding wampum.
Nope, that's a snake. I can see the mouth here. There's a mouth and an eye, and then this long thing, that's a snake. I don't know why. I don't know what the picture said underneath, but it was just kind of a cool picture to contrast between the big hat versus, meeting up with this guy would have been, the two different what do you call civilizations? You know what I mean? The first meeting of these two civilizations, the clashing. These natives are looking at these people saying, "Oh my God, they're different. They dress different. They look different. They have beards. They dress in these funny hats. So they have different kind of boots and clothes, and they're nothing like us." Miles Standish.
A culture clash.
Yes, and even speaking of culture clash, even being warriors, this was labeled Miles Standish fighting the Indians, and here you go again. Here's Miles Standish with his hard, metal hat, some armor he's got on, a big cape over himself, and he's got a knife made of steel against a pretty much bare naked Indian with some feathers on his hat. And even though this guy is big and strong, Miles Standish has got, the advantage of a metal hard hat. No matter if that Indian tried to stab him or not, he's got a metal armor on. You know what I'm saying? How intimidating. At least I think, who would have the upper advantage? Plus, you got guys in the background with guns could be shooting at you. Being a native, you wouldn't even really know what to expect out of this. No wonder, you could have a half a dozen pilgrims or a half a dozen colonists or whatever against a small army of 25 or 30, and you could defeat them because you had the superior technology. As you can see here again, you got the swords, you got their, they have actual shoes on. I still can't get over how they always show them getting out of this boat and just walking in the water. And I'm thinking, well, now your shoes are all wet. Were these boots really waterproof? That's what I wanted to. I would love to ask that. Are your boots waterproof? And you notice the thing with their gun. These early guns were so big and so heavy. You had to have a staff thing here to put the gun on to actually sight it in to get a fairly accurate shot, because they were huge. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And they were hard to hold up and aim.
Yes. And hence the little stick in the ground with the whatever, the yoke or whatever you call it. Okay, we're going to get into the Nauset people. And this is where, the pilgrims had landed and they got into there. F. Kitty says, Skyboy says it's a musket. Yes, we should call it a musket. F. Kitty says 70 pounds. Inaccurate unless up close. Yes, 70. Can you imagine lugging 70 pounds around to go hunting? Holy cow, you'd be tired before you shoot the first deer. Either that or you're really freaking strong. Scotty, so you shoot them once and then you use a club. Good for both, right? So we're going to talk about the Nauset people. The Nauset, sometimes referred to as the Cape Cod Indians. Boy, if they would just held on to that land now, boy, they'd be pretty rich, because the Cape Cod was probably big bucks. Were the Native American tribe who lived in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. They lived east of Bass River, and the lands occupied by closely related neighbors, the Wampanoags. In case I said that wrong. Although the Nauset were a distinct tribe from the Wampanoag, they often deferred to the authority of the Wampanoag chief or the sachem, and shared with the Wampanoag many similar aspects of culture, agriculture, particles, and common tongue, Massachusetts language. The tribe was one of the first to be visited by European explorers, colonists who abducted some tribal members to sell into slavery in Spain, and introduced diseases which reduced the Nauset population even before the colonization of New England began on a large scale. And that's where our next part of the story comes in. So as these ships were coming into the harbors and delivering goods and picking up supplies from, because they would come in when the people and drop off supplies, and then on their return trip, they would bring back corn, they would bring back lumber and timber, because remember, there wasn't much lumber and timber left in England after building thousands and thousands of ships over the years. The big timber was gone, and you can't build a navy without timber. Well, Champlain, historical record. Champlain describes contact with the Nauset people near Nauset Harbor in July of 1605. During a visit, a member of a French expedition and several native people were killed in a dispute over a metal kettle. The Pilgrims first contacted the Nauset was during the Mayflower's landing in November 1620 near present-day Provincetown. When they discovered a deserted village, the Nauset being away at their winter hunting ground, desperately low on supplies, the Pilgrims helped themselves to a catch of maize, which is corn, although they left a note, like they could read it in English, promising to pay for what they had stolen. The promise was eventually kept, and the Nauset, led by Aspinet, returned months later. Nauset, who returned a small boy who had wandered away in the colony and became lost, an act which greatly improved relations by nearby colonists. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that kidnapped boy. Apparently, this guy, Aspinet, that we looked at a little before, he and his tribe, he was the sachem or the chieftain or whatever you want to call him of of several petty tribes, put it that way. He was even upset. He was upset even before any relations with the Pilgrims, because ships had been coming in And at one point in time, one of the ships stopped in the harbor and, believe it or not, stole 24 Indians to take to Europe as slaves. So, he was very upset with that. 20 of those Indians that were kidnapped by a man named Hunt, a captain of the ship, one of the ships that brings supplies to the colonists in 1614. 20 of them belonged to the Pucktanet or Plymouth. It had happened 6 years after a landing at Cape Cod and before reaching Plymouth. So the ship stops in, and this Captain Hunt and his men somehow lured the Indians onto the boat. And once they got on the boat, they were, chained and handcuffed and, kept as slaves. And one of those Indians was Squanto, who eventually learned to speak English and came back to the colonies, which, made a lot of difference between the tribes. Okay, so as we know, so did you know that Plymouth was also called Pawtucket? Pawtucket, I guess that is Pawtucket or Plymouth, believe it or not. It was named by the Indians, so there you go. Plymouth was Pawtucket, and then there you go. One old woman told the Pilgrims, she was about 100 years old, that her sons were taken. All of her sons, and she was deprived of, them taking care of her in her old age. And there were 4 of her sons taken in that trip. But she survived, and eventually one of those men returned, and his name was Squanto. Well, Squanto, he ended up negotiating a deal with this boy who was lost in the woods and taken by the Indians for quite some time. And then he negotiated a deal with Aspinet. Well, Aspinet decided to bring the boy back to the Pilgrims, to the colonists there, and he marched him with all his Indians. And as you can see in the picture, they came in a big train, and they, he had a lot of manservants and whatever, and an army basically brought with him, and they all had their bows and arrows, and it could have been a war or it could have been peace. And somehow they negotiated this deal through Squanto and made peace. Aspinet came with this big train of Indians. He brought the boy back covered with beads. And in return, the Pilgrims and the English or whatever, they gave him a knife. They gave him a knife, which I suppose back in those days, a metal knife would have been very coveted, because there wasn't any of that around. Okay, after that, peace happened for quite a while, and there was large amounts of corn and beans that were sold to the colonists because they were starving. They were in famine. You remember, they landed in December. There wasn't much going on for about 2 years because, you have to develop the land. You have to build the houses. You have to plow the gardens up. There's a lot to do trying to grow stuff. You know what I mean? Besides that, remember, these colonists were basically employed by some kind of company or corporation to raise wheat, tobacco, corn to bring back to Europe. So even if you grew a lot of stuff, a lot of that stuff is going to go on the boat and sail away at the end of the season, and you are going to get nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Which is anyway, so that's
They had to pay their taxes.
they basically attacked. So even back in the day, they were, you know, things were still not good. Companies and corporations still owned you. Coming to the States was an opportunity to, filled with big dreams of property and land and getting rich. Well, you know, that could be good for you, or it could end badly if you were killed, you got disease, you got sick and died. Here's an old drawing of the area and what the river, the Cape Cod. You know, you can see it's not the greatest, but we maybe move on to something else. Okay, and you can see all the Indian tribes surrounding them. Here is Plymouth right here in Cape Cod Bay. Okay, and you got the Massachusetts, the Wampanoag, the Nauset, you got the Narragansett, the Mohican, the Pequot, the Nipmuc, I guess that's called, Poconup, and oh god, the Wimmemac. Hey, I don't know. Okay. Look at all the different tribes in the small area. I mean, this is quite the area, and it's divided up amongst all these different tribes. But that wouldn't last very long, because once you have all these tribes in here and these people start entering into this area, the English brought disease with them, and that spread amongst the Indians, wiping most of the Indians out before the English really ever got the place settled. You know, 90% of the tribes were killed off and had to repopulate themselves. Anyway, they did a lot of trading. The governor made a deal with what was it, Nauset, and he contracted for a bunch of corn. Well, he couldn't haul the corn back because it was 50 miles, I think it was 50 miles away. And so he left the corn and said, I can't take it now. And the Indians guarded the corn for him. And the governor promised them a big reward if they watched the corn, and they took very good care of it. And then so forth. But anyway, this if I can find it again, with Aspinet, I don't think really liked the English. When he met Miles Standish, he saluted him by thrusting out his tongue. That's what it said in my book. You probably won't find this in any other. He saluted him by thrusting out his tongue, and he licked his hand from the wrist to the hand to the fingers. And then he bowed to a knee to imitate the English. Go figure. I guess they didn't get the idea of kissing, you know, because you know how the English do, they kiss the hand.
Yeah.
Anyway. So anyway, Richard the Red's here, and he says, how long does corn last after being harvested before spoiled? Well, corn would last, if you harvest it in the fall and it comes winter, it will last all winter. What destroys corn is when it gets wet. Wet corn spoils, it molds, and then it's no good. So basically, if it's during the winter, it's like being in the freezer outside. So there you go.
They would hang the corn. They would hang the corn. They'd leave the corn most of the time on the husk, and then hang 2 or 3 husks together, and then with a string somewhere, they'd hang them up to keep them dry.
Nice. Yeah, and off the ground.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also to keep it up and to keep the air circulating around it, because even in a big silo where they store corn, there are fans that have to keep the corn from molding. So it keeps moving the corn, and there's air circulating through the corn at all times.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. Remember we talked about Massasoit? Massasoit was the big chief of Amiset. And he kind of run the whole show. If you can see this picture, you can see all the different tribes in here. This was quite the populated place by different tribes. I mean, I would love to go back there in the day, transported in time to, just see and meet these different tribes, because, and literally, this has all been settled and they were wiped out way early in things. Time. Let's see how come I don't have that picture? I had that picture. Chief Aspinet. That's why I don't have that picture. Anyway, here's Chief Aspinet of the Nauset, the Algonquin Federation. His birth date may have been 1566 to 1612. He died in 1623. So, and again, he died. Remember, I was telling you about the fever. The American fever came and killed off all these people, and he was one of them. His daughter, Princess Alice of the Nauset Indian tribe, a branch of the Algonquins, married the first Winnock Robert, who came to America aboard a planter from England. He died sick in the wilds, avoiding the white man, but it's possible he was eliminated by the powers at hand for political reasons. Again, with the political reasons. He brought the food for the first Thanksgiving. Aspinet died in 1623, was a Sagamore of the Nauset people. On June 11th, 1621, a child named Johnny Billington, say that 3 times fast, went missing from the Plymouth colony after getting lost in the woods. Upon request from the colonists, Aspinet found the boy, brought him back to them. This act, alongside his willingness to provide the colonists with food, led him being noted as a boon to the colonists. Yeah, of course. They had peace with Aspinet after the return of the boy for at least a year. Aspinet died sometime in 1623 after being driven into hiding by the Plymouth colonists. While it is unclear exactly what circumstances he died under, he was allegedly the leader of a group of Sagamores seeking to drive out the Plymouth colonists, a plan which was foiled by Massasoit. He warned a Massasoit who warned the colonists. Some people think that they believe that Aspinet was confused with Epinow as a member of this plot. He was succeeded as Sagamore by the Nauset man named George. Again, Aspinet is named in Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's 1858 poem, The Courtship of Miles Standish, as a Sagamore, alongside Samoset, Corbinet, Squanto, and Tomagagon, I guess. Aspinet appears to have been one of the leaders of the conspiracy of the Wampanoag Sagamores in the Massachusetts and the Nauset Indians to destroy Plymouth. The plot was discovered by Massasoit, principal chief of the Wampanoag. So there you go.
I wonder why.
Yeah, remember, 20 of his men were captured and taken off as slaves. Remember, I was telling you about that earlier in the show?
But that had nothing to do with the pilgrims on the ground.
He didn't care. He wanted...
Well, that's understood.
Yeah, they were white.
The white man is responsible.
Yes, exactly. They are not, Indian, you're one of them, I don't care kind of thing. And that's kind of how it seems to be. After the disease went through, it seems that since there wasn't many Indians, they picked and chose, who they were going to follow. We talked about that last week a little bit, where, you're going to get the backing of the English. Well, that just basically made your tribe bigger. The English had guns, and then of course you got the, other settlers, and, your tribe is bigger now. You have backing of, basically they're looking for more people in their tribe or another tribe to, be friended with. Unfortunately, the English didn't look at things like that. They befriended you for a little while and turned their back to you the moment you, Lucky says Wapanaga, Naga, no-go, Wapanogo. Okay, I guess I said that. Anyway, the point is these people would. Oh, okay, yeah. You didn't have many people left. You didn't have any Indians left. That's why they would take the children of the white man and convert them over to Indians. Why not?
And let me point something else out too.
Yes.
Much like is now in America. Why did the British turn their backs on the Indians so quickly? One of the reasons is that they would get a different captain or a lieutenant of the guard, and they had a different philosophy. So just like presidents and congressmen do these days, every 4 years or so. So a ship had come in, relieve the guy of duty, and he's going back to England. They drop off another guy. Now he don't know what the Indians are like. Next thing you know, they're killing each other.
Yes.
So there was that, the replacements and the new guard that came in, and so one day everything's hunky dory, and the next you go, well, why did they start a fight? Well, they got. If you've seen some of them old westerns, you get some buck guy come out of the east to go out west to fight the Indians. Next thing you know, he's got 3 arrows in him, and
Yep.
so because he, we're going to be tough and all that kind of thing. It was like that back then. It's still like that today. But so when the British guys came over, especially the army folks, they were this staunch. They got this way of doing stuff, and if you didn't do it their way, they'd just take a pot shot at you as to look at you.
Well, I totally agree with you. Here's some things I found out this week as I was doing some of my research, which I thought was really good. And as times progress, back in the day, this was all the king's land. Remember, it was all the British, the king's land, and people would the colonies, the 13 colonies, were the borders, of these lands that were deeded to other people. Basically, you got different corporations taking over these colonies, and the colonies would get colonists to divide up the land, and you would work the land and so forth and so on. And that's how you ended up with tracts of land. You just didn't go to the Indians and buy it yourself. The king claimed this land. Now, all this land was claimed up to the mountains, right? To the Appalachian Mountains. Now, the mountains were like this big border, and the colonists were not allowed to cross the border. This was the law, but many colonists decided to go across the border and stake out homes and land, and they didn't care. Hey, look, there's good land right over there. I'm going to take that land. Well, how did the king of England keep the colonists from spreading? Do you know?
He tied ropes around their waist.
No. He went ahead and he put a bounty on the colonists' heads. Okay, so the Indians were going to get paid £100 per colonists that crossed their border. I did not know that. That is quite the bounty. I mean, think about it. If you're an Indian and all of a sudden somebody crosses the border and comes across the mountains, now you're free game. You capture that guy, you haul him over to some British fort, and you get a bounty on him. And what did the British do with those people? They, basically, well, we paid £100 for you. Now you're a slave. And or and for something like some of the men, they would enlist them into the military. Now all of a sudden you're a British soldier.
You've been conscripted.
Yes, conscripted. So I was like, holy cow, I did. How are they filling the ranks of the British army? Well, you're conscripting. Yes, right. You paid £100 for this guy. And back in the day, this is just what you did. You basically bought that man, and now he's your slave. You put him in the military, and because I always wondered, how is it that they could bring these troops over from across the sea, and they would just get mowed down, and then they got more troops coming, and it didn't seem like they ever ran out of troops. They were using the colonists to fight the colonists. The Indians were just bringing in people. Here, I got you a guy. Here's £100. Great. You go over there. You're gonna chop wood, and you over there, you're a pretty good shot. I was reading about a little bit about Daniel Boone, not to get off the subject too much, but Daniel Boone, he kind of had the same thing going on there. He went out to trap and hunt. This was another thing. I'm sorry to say that any of the land outside of that border, you could go and hunt, but you couldn't settle it. You couldn't build a house and settle there. And if you did, you were free game and so forth and so on. And I'm going to look up Daniel Boone. Boone.
Daniel Boone was a man. Yes, a big man.
Yeah. Anyway, he was and tall
as a eagle could be. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. This is true.
At least that's how the song goes, right?
Yes. Daniel, why is I got all these things in here and I always label everything, and yet my stupid computer can never find any of the stuff. Always comes up and says, nope, doesn't exist. Why is that? And I know I did a show on him. It just makes me laugh. Stupid computer. Anyway. So anyway, they would do these things, and like I said, this is how Daniel Boone, this was another thing. He was gonna go to debtor's prison, right? And basically some guy said, hey, you're a good hunter trapper, Kentucky. I will cover you for the debtor's stuff, so you don't have to go to debtor's prison and become a slave and work off your debts. You go out there, risk your life, and take people and make a road out into Kentucky, which I just bought from the Indians, and and I'm going to settle it against the king's rules. And of course, when he went out there, him and his group of men were caught and taken for bounty to the British. Whereas he was going to get conscripted into the British Army, believe it or not. This could have changed everything. Can you imagine, Daniel Boone being a hero of the British Army fighting the colonists instead of the other way around? That would have been a history changer.
Yeah.
Anyway, just thoughts,
But then Davy Crockett came along, so
yeah, that's right. Oh, but that was quite a number of years later. I mean, Davy Crockett didn't come around till like the 18th.
It was a joke, I know.
Oh yeah, but I mean, still, it is very funny how how times change, but think of our history, how it could have changed if Daniel Boone would have been conscripted into the British military to fight, like say at the Battle of Lexington or in some of these other battles or skirmishes. He'd be fighting because you got the red coat on. People are shooting at you. You're going to shoot back. What are you going to do? Lay down and pretend you're dead or something? I mean,
Yeah.
Somebody will come up.
And then there was like somebody said that the current president should be on Mount Rushmore, and I thought, and somebody said, yeah, but he would have never crossed the Delaware like Washington. And what if Washington had not crossed the Delaware because of cold feet? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but it was that picture there is reminding me of it. It was snowing. It was cold. His men are freezing to death, literally. And he's like, "Come on, guys, we're going to cross the river." And they're like, "What?" But I mean, a different kind of person and a different kind of a different kind of hardiness.
Yes.
I mean, just that pioneer spirit, there's absolutely stuff to it. There were people who came over from Britain that just never went any further than the shore, and then there were the folks that came over and and headed for the Mississippi River.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you can see here, these people had it rough. I mean, they're out there chopping wood, moving logs, building houses by the sweat of their brow. I mean, not the greatest conditions in the world to live by, and they were tough.
And knowing that they literally risked everything, but looking at their odds of surviving was like maybe 50-50, maybe.
Yes. I mean, really, in today's world, I did a lot of thinking on this, and you're going to maybe laugh at me after I tell you, but I'm thinking about it. Exactly. Well, here's the thing. Look at these houses. They're living in this kind of, this is probably a mansion to them, and you're living free, and it's quiet. You're not under the king's thumb every day. You can do what you want, etc., etc. You got some neighbors. You're living by the ocean. You got the world tied behind. Grabbed by the tail. Yes, but here's the deal. What has changed? We do what we do nowadays. We get jobs, we work really hard, we save money, and we try to buy a house, and we're in debt. We live, a lot of people live from week to week. None of us probably listen to this show probably have millions of dollars in the bank, because those are the 1%ers. Most people, work every week, every day. They, get their paycheck, they pay their bills, and of course everything costs more. We're debtor slaves to the life we live. The food prices, the more we make, it seems food prices go up. The more we make, gas goes up. The price of a vehicle goes up. Oh, just when you think you got the world by the tail, well, the license plates and the insurance goes up, and your wages go up $1, and and it's the same thing here. These people came over here for a new life because they were broke and whatever. They built these houses. The king still gets his tax. They got to give him some of the crops or whatever it is. And yet they live out this meager existence, which they're thinking, oh, I got the world by the tail. And, and one day some Indians show up and kill you, and if you're really lucky, you survive and you get to live to your, 50 or 60 before you die of some disease or sickness or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, same here. What do? We work hard, we buy cheap food, and then the next thing you know, we're getting some cancer thing or whatever, or a sickness, and then you die off early anyway. The Indians don't have to scalp you, but the doctors will. You know what I'm saying?
And so will the taxes, Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You don't pay, you don't get to do anything. So it's just, like I said, it's it nothing changes. I mean, yeah, it does, but it doesn't. We want it to change, and we think it changes, but really, have we changed, or just the conditions changed, and we make it out to be something else? What is your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you. It's the conditions, because the basic premise of things is still there.
Yep.
There's going to be the banker.
Yep.
Everything, you want to start a new project, you're going to need a bankroll. Don't care who you are. You got to have some kind of bankroll to start your stuff. Now sometimes it just takes a little, and sometimes it takes millions, but you got to have a bankroll. You got to be able to, you got to have that starter,
Well,
So, and there are people who, out of high school, out of college, that don't have starter. And so they will go out and in some cases sell their soul, to a company to get that starter money, or to get that first chance, or to work for, a certain firm or whatever. And so, but then in order to keep that, they have to pay and pay. They have to keep working and do what the boss says, and come in on Saturdays or Sundays, or, so, but yeah, so it hasn't really changed at all. There's still going to be the banker, and that's not necessarily bad, but there are the folks who are the bankers. That's just the way it's always been.
Well, look at the Pilgrims. We're just going to go back to the Pilgrims, for instance. Well, they got here. Well, they didn't get on that ship for free.
Right.
Somebody had to bankroll them, or they had to save up their money for, I mean, even back in those days, traveling across the ocean was a risky business, and you had to hire a ship. So somebody's paying. What? You're not a stowaway, And when you get here, that's like you said, somebody bankrolled you, more than likely. You got over here, and then to live on the king's land, you're going to have to pay some kind of tax, or more or less barter, because I don't think the Pilgrims were paying each other in money. Do you?
No, that was strictly barter.
Yeah, exactly. And to pay your taxes would have been barter too. Everything would have been mostly barter, and maybe a little bit of coinage somewhere along the line. But I think most of it, you're right, is bartering.
Yeah, so if you had 10 bushels of corn, the king was going to get his take.
Yes.
So how many bushels he got? We got 10. Well, we're taking 4 of them. What? Well, that's the king's tax. Well, wait a minute. We don't have enough to eat and to plant next year. What do? Tough. They load the 4 bushels on board, and back to England they go.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. That's the sad part, because we don't even think about that. We think, oh, the Pilgrims had it so good. They came here and just chopped down some trees. They traded with the Indians. Life was good. Not so much. We still had, like Scotty Boy said earlier, death and taxes. Things just
if you've never lived, now I've not lived up there on the Atlantic Ocean that far north, but I've been to the Atlantic Ocean down here in Georgia in the wintertime, and it was bitterly cold. And there's no windbreaks or nothing, and there's no, you got to travel 2 miles to go chop something down to get firewood. I mean, life is tough.
Yes. You're living a tough life because, you want to have, this is the land of plenty where you could get rich. Isn't it amazing what people do for an opportunity? Even nowadays, people will risk everything for an opportunity. They will work 2 or 3 jobs. They will travel God knows how many miles to make their life better. And they did that same thing back then. Look at, boy, there's opportunity. Get on this boat, go over to America and make yourself, rich with, by farming or chopping trees or hunting, and getting pelts, beaver pelts and hides, and, deer are bounding everywhere and beaver are popping out of the streams like freaking crickets. I mean, am I right?
Yep.
And
that's how it was sold. Literally, they would take ads in the newspaper, and when folks, moved west for the big land grabs, the people would line up on horses and wagons and whatever, and
Yep.
whoever got to a spot and could literally put in a stake and stake a claim, then that's the property that they could get.
Yeah. But even so, I read about some of those things. I went to the museums around here, and even when you put in a stake or a claim, you had to pay for that. You didn't get that place just because you put a stake in the ground. The claim, the deed, these people were claiming land, but you had to pay $6 or $8, and then there was another fee for whatever. It might have cost you $20 for the whole thing, but how long would it take you to make $20?
Well, but back then when they were trying to get folks, you had to stay on the land for 20 years.
Yeah, there you go.
That was what homesteading was all about. You could stake a claim, but in order for you to get the deed, you had to stay there for 20 years and work the land.
Yeah. And, I understand that because they needed people to do the work and clear the king had a he must have had a brain in his head, or he must have had a bunch of people working for him with brains, because he needed people to go clear the land, to chase the Indians off, to do all of these things without paying a whole bunch of extra people to do it.
Well, but also too, let's back that up just a little bit. The king barely knew what was over there.
Yes.
So they was paying folks to go over and explore and set up a base camp, because they really didn't know what was there in those early days. They literally were like, well, man, we saw a bunch of trees from the shore. Well, that's good. Yeah, but then it looked like good fishing. Well, that's good. Yeah, there were some good harbors. Well, that's good. So therefore, we can make something out of this. And eventually they did. But look how many years it took them.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well,
to really turn a profit.
Oh yeah. And I like I said, they had this planned out pretty well. It was planned out pretty well because, they. I don't know. They knew what they were doing. The king, he was kind of like a Biden, he didn't care, but I'm sure he had a lot of subjects working underneath him that had this all figured out. You know what I'm saying? Because they all had their hand in the cookie jar and somebody was making money on it.
And in a lot of ways, they were overpopulated. They were, the king's land wasn't producing as much, and there were too many serfs, and there was, people, scrawny little kids in the streets of London and all, and, and to think about how it was back in them days. So the king was willing to send some folks over to get rid of them, but also with the possibility if they could turn a profit.
Yep, exactly.
So it was a twofer. He got rid of folks in his own country because they were just, too many folks and not enough food back in them days. And so, the moms and dads were selling their kids off and whatever, or the debtor's prison. And so, But with that said, though, so there was that other side of the coin, for the king. Is like, I could get rid of some of these guys. And
Yep. King James was the Plymouth Pilgrim King. Yes, there you go. Anyway, okay, are you ready for the story tonight? I know I am. I'm sitting on my edge of my seat here.
We'll back it up a little bit. Your butt will get sore.
Okay. That's a good one. I love it. Okay, well,
give me a second here. I was pulling cards, and
I knew you were doing something over there.
Yeah,
sneaky you. Anyway, Scotty Boy says, I grew up eating Spam. Yes, I had Spam and bologna myself. We were poor. We had bologna sandwiches. My mom would grow tomatoes and throw a few tomatoes and some mayo on it. And boy, I thought that was the best thing ever. Little did I know what to put in bologna or Spam. Yes, reminds me of the days. Lady Spitfire, yes. Reminds me of those days of when I was a kid.
Nothing like fried bologna.
Yeah. Spam is good with like mac and cheese and broccoli. Ooh, now, yeah, I'm going to make me some homemade mac and cheese one of these days. Not that stuff with the powdery pack, all that, whatever it is that you can't pronounce. I really don't think
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. Bratwurst and cabbage again tonight. It was sure good. Yeah, I love cabbage. I got some cabbage out in the backyard, growing in the garden. I'm going to cook it up one of these days. I had bratwurst with some cucumber salad and mashed potatoes. Oh, man, that was good. Actually, what? Susie Q says, actually, I love fried salami. Oh, yeah, fried salami and fried bologna sandwiches on toast with mustard. Oh, yeah. Yes. Now that sounds good. You're making me hungry. My mouth is watering. I do have some sourdough bread I bought the other day, and I'm going to make me a big old tomato sandwich. And maybe put a piece of ham on it. I got a piece of ham, and that's what I think I'm going to do one of these days. Oh, yeah. I got a lot of cucumbers in the garden, and they're going to be not so good anymore. It's going to starting to get the end of the season. You know what I mean? Pickled Richard, send me the recipe for a pickled cabbage. I know how to make sauerkraut, but I do not know how to make pickled cabbage. Never heard of it. Never actually tried it. So there you go. Really am enjoying the garden. This weekend, I am going to be putting up tomatoes, and maybe I'll make some videos on that. I got me a new tomato grinder thingy that squishes out the seeds and the skins and comes up with just the juice where I can put it in the pot and boil it and boil it and boil it. And there, hello, Mama Cookie. You know how to can too? Thank you for coming. She says, I am new to this channel. Well, everybody send her out a big greetings and thank you for showing up tonight. Yes, homemade cabbage is this a food channel? No, well, we're just talking about a garden stuff because I've been picking my garden stuff, and David Null's going to do the show here. He is going to be telling the story tonight called The Bended Rocks. So I am going to be letting him take over the stage while he was letting the dog out. So anyway, David, it is all yours.
Okie dokie.
Have a new viewer, Mama Cookie, and say hello to her. And I just made Scotty Boy hungry. So, okay, it's all yours. Later.
Welcome to the new person. Stick around if you'd like. Our story for tonight, we are sticking with the American Indian and fairy tales, Snowbird, the Water Tiger, and etc. by Margaret Compton. 1907. And this particular story is The Bended Rocks, a story of Niagara. And just in case, Niagara means as in Niagara, New York, Niagara Falls, okay? So, The Bended Rocks. Bending Willow was the most beautiful girl in a tribe noted for its handsome women. She had many suitors, but she refused them all. For her love was given to a young warrior of a distant nation who, she felt sure, would someday return to throw a red deer at her feet in token that he wished to marry her. Among her suitors was a hideous old Indian chief, a chief who was very rich. He was scarred and wrinkled, and his hair was as gray as the badger that burrows in the forest. He was cruel also, for when the young men were put to the torture to prove themselves worthy to be warriors, he devised tests more dreadful than any that the tribe had ever known. But the chief, I lost my place, I'm sorry. But the chief, who was rightly named No Heart, declared that he would marry Bending Willow. And as powerful as he was powerful, her parents did not dare to refuse him. Bending Willow begged and pleaded in vain. For some reason, my computer is not cooperating tonight. My scrolling won't work. And it was working earlier. Excuse me. Let me get things set back up. Oh, there's a program running in the background. That's it. Okay. Let me start over. I'm sorry, this happens on occasions, and I hate it when it happens. There was a program in the background running, and it took away my scrolling device. I'll be with you in a second. Well, I'll just wet your whistle with, ooh, now we know how the story's going to start. There's a scarred old Indian. Come on, Hawkeye, get there, come on. We'll get to that page in a minute. It took me back up to the top of the book. The Bended Rocks. Starting over. Take 2. A Story of Niagara. Sorry for the delay. Bending Willow was the most beautiful girl in a tribe noted for its handsome women. She had many suitors, but she refused them all, for her love was given to a young warrior of a distant nation, who, she felt sure, would someday return to throw a red deer at her feet, in token that he wished to marry her. Among her suitors was a hideous old Indian, a chief who was very rich. He was scarred and wrinkled, and his hair was as gray as the badger that burrows in the forest. He was cruel also, for when the young men were put to the torture to prove themselves worthy to be warriors, he devised tests more dreadful than any that the tribe had ever known. But the chief, who was rightly named No Heart, declared that he would marry Bending Willow, and as he was powerful, her parents did not dare to refuse him. Bending Willow begged and pleaded in vain. On the night before the day set for the marriage, she went into the woods and, throwing herself on the ground, sobbed as if her heart would break. All night she lay there, listening to the thunder of the great cataract of Niagara, which was but a woman's journey from the village. At last it suggested to her a sure means of escape. In the early morning, before anyone was stirring, she went back to her father's wigwam, took his canoe, and dragged it to the edge of the river. Then, stepping into it, she set it adrift, and it headed quickly towards the falls. It soon reached the rapids and was tossed like a withered branch on the white crested billows, but went on, swiftly and surely to the edge of the great fall. For a moment only, she saw the bright green water, and then she felt herself lifted and was borne on great white wings, which held her above the rocks. The water divided, and she passed into a dark cave behind the rainbow. The spirit of cloud and rain had gone to her rescue and had taken her into his lodge. He was a little old man with a white face and hair and beard of soft white mist, like that which rises day and night from the base of the falls. The door of his lodge was the green wave of Niagara, and the walls were of gray rock studded with white stone flowers. Cloud and rain gave her a warm wrapper and seated her on a heap of ermine skins in a far corner of the lodge where the dampness was shut out by a magic fire. This is the fire that runs beneath the falls and throws its yellow and green flames across the water, forming the rainbow. He brought her dainty fish to eat and delicate jelly made from mosses, which only the water spirits can find or prepare. When she was rested, he told her that he knew her story, and if she would stay with him, he would keep her until her ugly old suitor was dead. A great serpent, added he, lies beneath the village and is even now poisoning the spring from which No Heart draws all the water that he uses, and he will soon die. Bending Willow was grateful and said that she would gladly remain all her life in such a beautiful home and with such a kind spirit. Cloud and Rain smiled, but he knew the heart of a young girl would turn towards her own home when it was safe for her to return. He needed no better proof of this than the question she asked about the serpent, which caused so much sickness among her people. He told her that this serpent had lain there many years. When he once tasted human blood, he could never be satisfied. He crept beneath a village and cast a black poison into the springs from which people drew water. When anyone died, the serpent stole out at night and drank his blood. That made him ravenous for more. So when one death occurred, more followed until the serpent was gorged and went to sleep for a time. When you return, said Cloud and Rain, persuade your people to move their camp. Let them come near me, and should the serpent dare to follow, I will defend them. Bending Willow stayed 4 months with Cloud and Rain, and he taught her much magic and showed her the herbs which would cure sicknesses. One day when he came in from fishing, he said to her, "No Heart is dead. This night I will throw a bridge from the foot of the waters across the falls to the high hills. You must climb it without fear, for I will hold it firmly until you are on the land." When the moon rose and lighted all the river, Cloud and Rain caused a gentle wind to raise the spray until it formed a great white arch, reaching from his cave to the distant hills. He led Bending Willow to the foot of this bridge of mist and helped her to climb until she was assured of her safety and could step steadily. All the tribe welcomed her, and none were sorry that she had not married No Heart. She told them of the good spirit, Cloud and Rain, of his wonderful lodge, of his kindness, and of the many things he had taught her. At first, they would not entertain the idea of moving their village, for there were pleasant fishing grounds where they lived, and by the falls, none but spirits could catch the fish. But when strong men sickened and some of the children of the chief died, they took down their lodge poles and sought the protection of the good spirit. For a long time they lived in peace and health, but after many moons the serpent discovered their new camp and made his way thither. Cloud and Rain was soon aware of his arrival and was very angry because the serpent dared to come so near his lodge. He took a handful of the magic fire and molded it into thunderbolts, which he hurled at the monster. The first stunned him, the second wounded him severely, and the third killed him. Cloud and Rain told them to drag the body to the rapids and hurl it into the water. It took all the women of the tribe to move it, for it was longer than the flight of 20 arrows. As it tossed upon the water, it looked as though a mountain had fallen upon the waves, and it drifted but slowly to the edge of the great fall. There it was drawn between the rocks and became wedged so firmly that it could not be dislodged, but coiled itself as if it had lain down to sleep. Its weight was so great that it bent the rocks, and they remain curved like a drawn bow to this day. The serpent itself was gradually washed to pieces and disappeared. In the moon of flowers, the young warrior, whom Bending Willow loved, came and cast a red deer at her feet, and they were happy ever after. The end.
Nice. Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
A nice story, eh? No head chopping? Yeah. Of course, they did have to wait for the old guy to die, but at least they didn't kill him.
Yes.
So, so much for that. These stories aren't so bloodthirsty.
Yes. Exactly. Oh.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I like.
So we got a spread tonight.
Uh-oh. How many tonight?
5.
Okay. Yeah.
Only 5. And we're starting out with mouse, which is number 30 in our book of
Okay.
No, that's it. No, that's 20. It's mouse.
Okay. Got mouse.
And mouse is scrutiny. And mouse is upside down. And mouse says, I will touch everything with my whiskers in order for me to know it. Paradoxically, that this is both a great power and also a great weakness. It is good medicine to see up close. It is good medicine to pay close attention to detail, but it is bad medicine to chew every little thing to pieces and look at it too closely. Mouse is many predatory animals. Since mouse is food for many, it has a highly developed sense of danger at every turn. Mouse people anger many other medicine type because they appear to be nitpickers. They will try to convince you that the simplest task is fraught with difficulty. The chiefs tell us that without mouse, there would be no systemization of knowledge. In other words, mouse always kept things in order. So mouse is scrutiny, but upside down it is maybe telling you that you are spending too much time with matters of great consequence when you should be paying a traffic ticket or sweeping the porch. You may have let yourself become slovenly. You may have developed a disdain for authority and order. You may be procrastinating about something that needs immediate attention. Another message of mouse reverse may be that you are pipe dreaming about your own importance in life. That's an interesting way. Are you wondering why you have not been nominated for the Academy Awards? Remember that all good things come to those willing to work towards the wholeness. Little mouse needs to see the big picture, but only assimilate the information the picture gives a little at the time. In other words, mouse can't accept too much of the big picture because it scrutinizes everything. And the next card is horse, which is horsepower. What number is that? 35. What I always get from Mouse is don't scrutinize too much. You know, pick your head up and look around and take a second. And horse is power. Stealing horses is stealing power was a statement made frequently by Native Americans and a reference to the esteemed role which horse played in the native cultures. Horse was the first animal to be brought to the United States. Native Americans did not have horse until the Europeans showed up with them. So humanity made a great leap forward when horse was domesticated. They could carry burdens for great distances with ease. Through their special relationship with horse, humans altered their self-concept beyond measure. Horse was the first animal medicine of civilization. In other words, it was brought in. And horse is power, as in horsepower. But the horse is upside down. If your ego has gotten in the way, now, Mouse is saying that you might be too full of yourself. So if your ego has gotten in the way, you may have failed to notice the lack of respect you have been receiving from others. You may, on the other hand, be struggling with others who are abusing their power. Remember the times in your own life when you have fallen out of the grace with great spirit, and then have compassion for the brothers or sisters who are now going through the same. And there's a lot of folks that are doing that. In allowing all pathways to have equal validity, you will see the power and glory of the unified family of humanity. This is the gift of the rainbow warrior or the warrioress. The eye has no place in the whirling rainbow that comes from the great mystery and is replaced by the universal we. The next card up is Turtle, number 10, and it is right side up. And Turtle is Earth Mother, I believe. We haven't had Mouse in a while. We haven't had Horse in a while. We haven't had Turtle in a while. So it's interesting to see these other cards show up. Yep, Turtle is Mother Earth. In native teachings, Turtle is the oldest symbol for planet Earth. It is the personification of the goddess energy and the eternal mother from which our lives evolve. We are born of the womb of the earth, and to her soil our bodies will return. In honoring the earth, we are asked by Turtle to be mindful of the cycle of give and take, to give back to the mother as she has given to us. Turtle has a shell which is similar to the protection that Earth has employed for centuries. Mother Earth's protection has come in the form of earth changes, new things growing. Like Turtle, you also have shields that protect you from hurt, envy, jealousy, and the unconsciousness of others. Turtle teaches you through its habit patterns how to use protection. If you are bothered by the actions or words of others, maybe it's time to go inside yourself and honor your feelings. If you are attacked, it is time to give a warning snap. Now, going inside is not to be depressed or whatever, it's strictly to go in for reflection. So if somebody's not is picking on you, you know, it might be time in other ways, maybe not physically, mentally, but maybe spiritually. You just need to sit still and think about it. If you drew the turtle card, it augurs a time of connecting with the power of Earth and the mother goddess within. This is a reminder of the ally you have in Mother Earth. And don't forget that. It does not matter what situation you have created. Ask for her assistance and abundance will follow. Not bad. Now, the next two cards, one is hawk upside down, and the other is grouse. We got two birds of a feather. Hawk is the messenger and is upside down. Hawk is akin to Mercury, the messenger of the gods. Hawk medicine teaches you to be observant, to look at your surroundings. Observe the obvious in everything that you do. Life is sending you signals all the time. Life is the initiation. If you pulled the hawk card, then right now is a clue about the magic of life is being brought to you. This magic can imbue you with the power to overcome any stressful or difficult situation. The test is your ability to observe the nuances of power lurking nearby. Now the card's upside down, so it is, if you've drawn it reversed, it may be because you have shut down your powers of observation. In other words, you've closed your eyes. If something in your life has become too painful to feel, too unbelievable to hear, or whatever, it is time to examine the point at which you chose to let yourself become emotionally involved and to no longer be the observer. For those of you who have been with me a while, you've always heard me talk about the observer position, the observer effect. And when you stop being the observer and become too emotionally involved, then you can't think clearly and you can't see clearly. And that's what the upside down hawk is trying to tell you. So have you become too emotionally involved in something that you can't see clearly? Or maybe there's another reason that you're not seeing clearly. And so the last card for tonight is grouse, which is the sacred spiral, if I remember correctly. Let's see if I'm getting pretty good at this after 2 years. Yep, 34 is a sacred spiral with the grouse, and it's upside down too. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean bad things, but the grouse used to be very abundant in the North America. The sacred spiral is one of the most oldest known symbols for personal power. When you think of grouse medicine, visualize a whirlpool or even a tornado, for the sacred spiral will take you to the center. The spiral is a metaphor for personal vision and enlightenment. Many initiates on a vision quest paint spirals on their bodies and believe that the great mystery will favor them with visions of power and purpose because of this symbol. Now, the sacred spiral is very important, and the whirling dervishes and many natives, if everything is done in a circle, the sacred spiral. So with this card upside down, drawing the grouse card reversed signals a dissipation of energy and lack of control and discipline. It is symbolic of a lost connection to the source energy. And we just talked about getting close to Mother, Turtle, getting close to Mother Earth. It signifies a lack of clear intent behind an outpouring of energy. So in other words, you're putting out a lot of energy, but maybe spinning your wheels. You may feel like you are in a tailspin or going down the drain. There's a lot of us that feel that way these days. Confront confusion either in yourself or in others who may be dragging you down the drain. Examine the way your energy may be causing friction. Work towards harnessing your energy and directing it towards clearly aimed goals, such as the nature of the sacred dance, the sacred spiral. So it also, helps you to pull your focus in. And so, if your energy's being diffused, if you're an upside down hawk and you're not seeing things clear, and Turtle is saying, grab a hold of Mother Earth, and Horse says you got the power, but you're not using it. And Mouse says, quit scrutinizing things so close and take a deep breath and get involved in the dance. So I hope that gives you all a little bit of something. It is a positive message. Get yourself out of the doldrums if you're in them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You don't see too many grouses around. At least I haven't. They're out there, but I don't see them. They hide real good.
Yeah, they do. I remember 20 odd years ago, went to North Georgia mountains in the wintertime and was on the Georgia side, and way up there in the corner where Georgia and Tennessee, South Carolina come together, and crossed over the Chattooga River to get into South Carolina, and a grouse ran out in front of the truck.
Oh,
and we drove through the national forest of South Carolina, and there were birds flying everywhere. We turned around and went back over the bridge and drove around for the next 2 days. Never saw a grouse on the Georgia side.
Wow.
As close as the river, all they had to do was cross the bridge. They didn't even have to swim, But there were no grouse on the Georgia side. Before we left, I said, I just got to see, and drove back across the bridge. Now there's national forest on either side up there. So we crossed from the Cherokee National Forest into into Sumter, whatever. But anyway, sure enough, within a mile, there was looked like a road runner come running across the gravel road. And I was like, I just can't believe it. There are a bunch of them over here, but for some reason, they don't like Georgia.
Just the way it is. Maybe you just didn't have that group on that side right then, but who knows?
I've never seen one in Georgia. And, I've been up in North Georgia mountains and all over camping for years, and I've never seen one. And then I crossed into South Carolina for a short drive, and bingo, they're all over the place. So that was just weird.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, really.
Huh. Oh. Anyhow, yeah, good cards tonight. A lot of cards. I love the horse card. I like the turtle card. Turtles are pretty. I got a turtle shell in my shed. I found out when I was out riding one day. Here was a big old turtle shell in the middle of the field. I have no idea how it got there, so I picked it up, brought it home. Go figure.
Turtle, oh, now I can't think of the word. Gopher turtle.
I don't know what it was. It was just I'll have to show you this turtle shell one of these days. I'll take a picture of it, send it to you. But I don't know what kind of turtle it was. It was a big one though, pretty good size for at least big as one I ever see. You know, besides like a snapping turtle or something. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. F Kitty says tortoise maybe. I don't know. Maybe that. I don't know. Is there a difference between a tortoise and a turtle?
Yes.
Shell? Oh, there is.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look that one up.
A tortoise lives mostly on the ground and will dig a tunnel in the earth.
Really?
Yep, and will share a hole with. They call them gopher turtles down here. I don't know if that's what they call them up yonder, but
don't know.
They'll dig a tunnel under the ground and go in there and live.
Okay, yeah. Susie Q knows all tortoises live in the dry.
Turtle, yeah.
Okay, maybe it was a tortoise because I found it up on top of a hill, so something dragged it up there. So how about that? I'll dig it up and we'll see where it is. It's in the shed. I just want to make a shout out to everybody. I hope you all enjoyed the show tonight. Maverick one is in the house. Medusa, Drumstud, Mary Wins, Susie Q, Scotty Boy. Wow, we had a lot of people coming in here and enjoying the show tonight. Witchy Moon, yes. Who else is in here? I seen Elderberry, and I seen Lucky Stone, and we had Mama Cookie was in here earlier, and let's see who else. Big shout out to everybody who's come to Richard the Red. Thank you for being here tonight. But yeah, enjoyed the conversation. Lady Spitfire, if you're still watching, thank you for showing up tonight and joining us all here. It's been a good night. Lots of conversation going on. And Chloe was in the house earlier listening. She's at work and she's listening. How dedication is that? And but anyhow, with all that,
thank you all for showing up and hanging out with us. We always appreciate it, don't we, Robert?
Yes, we do. We've been getting, believe it or not, the Native American Myths and Legends show is one of my highest rated. We were talking about that before the show. It's one of the highest rated shows that I do, most viewed anyway. It is kind of nice to know that people care and come every week, and we've done 143 shows as of tonight. And I'm glad you all could join us each and every time. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, everybody. And we are gonna keep bringing you good shows, good stories, and good history, right?
And discussion along the way.
Oh, absolutely. We get better as we go.
We're put up with me.
Fine. Regine Hutchelson's in the house. Happy end of the summertime month of September. Yes, September, and then October comes and Halloween is right around the corner. I don't think that the natives celebrated Halloween. That was a European thing.
Yeah. It was a Catholic thing.
Yes, definitely. Of course, I always do a little study on Halloween and the pilgrims, and with the They were firm believers in not celebrating anything really. No Christmas, no nothing. It was weird. But we'll review some of that later on. Even though they did start the Thanksgiving thing, sort of. So.
Well, I was just thinking about something. I was thinking, come see us next Tuesday again. And in 2 weeks, oh my God, in 2 weeks is my birthday on Tuesday.
It'll be a celebration.
And it'll be 145 shows, whether or not that makes any difference. But, so in 2 weeks, y'all can celebrate my birthday with me. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'll just have to smush cake into the camera. And the ice cream will just drip. So you got to bring your own condiments.
It'll be good. Anyway. Thank you, Scotty boy. Thank you all for being here tonight, he says. And he says, I just wrote that down. Don't forget. Okay. No reason we can't celebrate for the... Oh, yeah. F. Kitty wants to celebrate for the next 2 weeks. Anyway, we're wrapping it up. Don't forget to join me Saturday night where we're going to have EA Quelling on. So EA will be joining us on Saturday night. We're going to be talking about all things interesting, magical. So that and a little bit of magic, what's going on in the world. And so there you go. Join us Saturday night where EA will be on. And it'll be a good show. It'll be real good. If you don't know who he is, I'll be putting up some stuff. And you can go over to Nina's channel and check him out over there. She just did a show with him not too long ago. So there you go. Drums. Mary's saying happy birthday already. Yeah, she's ready to celebrate.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I didn't bring that up to get, wishes. I was just thinking, holy crap, in 2 weeks on a Tuesday. Oh, wow. Hey, okay. But anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Remember, go out and do something nice for somebody else. It will make you feel better. And it'll warm your heart and it'll warm their heart. And in this day and age when, nobody has a whole lot, that it's the giving part. You don't have to give them gifts. You just have to give of yourself. So do that and be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers. Be safe.